Just because something's in the wild doesn't mean it doesn't belong there. The phrase is invasive species. Our next guests just returned from a trip to Florida where they found several reptiles and amphibians that aren't native to the area, and they're here to share those discoveries with us. Herpetologist and author David Nieves alongside his daughter Mia. It's nice to see you two again. David, this is not a hobby for you. This is your, right? It is a passion, but it's also your job. Remind us about your background.
Yes, when I was very young, actually around Mia's age, she's 10 now, I became fascinated with the reptiles and amphibians and always wanted to be a herpetologist and study the animals, which is the biology of studying these reptiles and amphibians. And so I grew up, became herpetologist, so traveled around the planet, studying these animals, learning about working with them and teaching others about them. And Mia seems to really enjoy it too, now that I've embarrassed her.
It's funny that we've watched her grow up and we've talked about how comfortable she is around the snakes, the lizards, the frogs, whatever you bring into us. And we're looking at some pictures here too. We also saw the covers from a couple of your books. I mean, you really care about educating all kids.
Well, and those last two pictures there were actually from the trip.
Oh, when you just went to
some
Florida.
Things that we caught.
What part of Florida were you in?
We were down there in the Miami area.
Okay.
And which has become a hotbed of invasive species. And some really wonderful friends of ours basically called us a little bit before the Christmas and said, hey, listen, we're going to be gone. If you guys want to stay at our house and drive our car and live here and live in our beautiful home for a couple weeks, you can. I'm like, yeah. And so we went down there, and you can't put me next to the Everglades without expecting me to disappear in there.
Go searching. So, what were you looking for? I mean, you were looking for invasive species.
Precisely,
when you were there.
Yes. There are all these things that have been introduced there, and we found actually a total of 9 different invasive species, including a few in areas where they have not been recorded yet.
Okay.
So we're going to log that information.
What did you bring in today?
So a few things we brought in today, and one thing, let me see, Mia's going to bring this out so you can handle this one.
Oh my gosh.
And this is actually, this is a chameleon. Now, true chameleons, this is
just on a green leaf.
Yeah.
Is that why he's green?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this little guy here is called a veiled chameleon. They've been introduced into southern Florida and are now starting to flourish. And so when an animal is introduced, they don't always survive. And sometimes they become invasive. When they become invasive, what happens? What's the case there, Mia?
They either start killing off the animals that are native there, or they are either just better survivors.
Yeah, they start out competing. And we don't know yet if the chameleons are going to be truly invasive and causing problems.
David, look at it changing.
I know, because suddenly it's out here, so it's changing color right in front of our eyes.
That is wild. What chemically, what's happening that allows the chameleon to make those adjustments?
In their cells, they have these little things, chromatophores, and basically they're closing and opening, and the colors are appearing and disappearing.
Oh wow!
It's a fascinating ability, but it happens so fast. And this is one that's very, very calm and tame, that can be held by other people if you wish to.
Okay, I'd love to. Yeah, here, let me take this one, Mia. What do you want to show us next, David?
Okay.
Hi.
Now this is a basilisk. Can you take it?
Okay, and he looks feisty.
He is. This one we found actually in an area that it was 10 miles outside their range, their recorded range. And the basilisk is also known as the Jesus lizard because they can run on water. They actually can run across water.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen on like National Geographic specials and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Maybe. Yeah.
They're native to Central America. They've been introduced into Florida. They're doing very well. They're expanding their range, as we saw by this one. And we were out at night with flashlights looking for all the critters. And I spotted this tree frog. I'm like, Mia, look at the tree frog. She's like, what about the lizard? Tell.
You saw him?
Yeah.
Couldn't see it. It's like bigger than it, like 13 sizes bigger, and he can't see it.
I know. She's showing me up, basically. Saying, where's the I'm like, what lizard? She's like, it's right there.
Does it belong here? So in that case, or in this case, I mean, David, are they pets and somebody lets them out at some point? Or how in the world do these species end up where you were?
Exactly, which I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the most common way, is somebody has it as a pet, they get tired of it, and they turn it loose. And that's never, ever, ever okay. If you have something, and even here in Nebraska, I run into people who say they have an animal, they bought it at a pet store, they're like, well, it's not doing that good, I really can't take care of it, I'm going to turn it loose.
You're messing with the ecosystem.
Exactly.
And you might not think about it in that moment, but it truly is significant.
It's horrible, and it's horrible to the animal because a lot of them don't survive, and then they die a slow, lingering death in the wild. And others that do survive can cause problems. Now, most exotics can't survive in Nebraska, but which means they're going to die a slow,
Oh my
lingering
gosh,
death.
this guy's eyeballs.
Yeah,
Like, David, they're all over the place. I've never seen anything like it.
Isn't that cool?
It's even more impressive than an owl's head, kind of the rotation of those eyeballs.
And that chameleon's going to get over 1.5 feet long.
Oh, wow.
It's
So
going to
just
get
a baby.
big. Yeah.
Okay. What is that?
Now, this is a Cuban night owl. And the tree frogs on the table, too. Those
Okay.
are also introduced to Florida. They're doing well. They're out competing the native tree frogs. When we went out...
So that's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we were out in the Miami area at night looking in the wild areas, we didn't find a native species of amphibian, of frog, until the last night we were there.
Whoa.
I found one leopard frog.
And everything else had
Yeah.
been introduced.
Everything else
They're
had been
foreign.
introduced. Yeah, and they're out competing.
Okay.
These tree frogs get bigger than the natives, and they eat them. This is a Cuban night owl in my hand right here. These things, his tail was like that when we got him, but this Cuban night owl, these get very large. They're out competing the native anoles. And they were introduced, and they're everywhere now. They're doing very well.
Why are you
they're
pulling his
beautiful.
I mean, I don't know if he's
That's their
enjoys
display.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the males have a big
Okay.
display they use to, because they're up high in the trees. But it's a beautiful species, but you can't find native anoles in Miami anymore. But you find tons of these. And
Okay.
they're gorgeous.
They are.
But they don't belong.
But they don't belong. And again, that's the point of why you wanted it. It's not just to say, this is happening in Florida. Of course this happens in our neck of the woods as well. And just to sort of be mindful, be educated about how to stop it.
Exactly.
And how to respond to it. And what do you have still?
Okay.
Do you have anything?
And
What?
kind of one of the and some of the other natives we were looking for, because it's funny, Christmas break, usually people are going sightseeing or going to amusement parks. And Mia and I were down in Florida, so we went out at midnight in the Everglades with a flashlight and a stick.
Oh my gosh, David.
Because it's fun, right?
That sounds like fun.
But the other thing we found a lot of were these. And you got one?
I have to wash my hands.
I know. And Mia just mentioned she's going to have to wash her hands with this. Now, this looks like a toad, and it is a toad. This is the infamous cane toad that has been introduced all over the planet. They're native to South America where they have a lot of predators, but they don't have predators where they've been introduced. And they're causing trouble in Australia and Hawaii.
What kind of trouble do they cause?
They
David?
get huge, for one thing. These are we brought these back as little babies, but the females can get about this size, bigger than a dinner plate.
Oh my.
They eat the other native amphibians. They also are very toxic. Mia mentioned right away that she'll wash her hands
Yeah.
after this. They have very strong poison in their skin. Any predator that tries to eat them dies. So dogs will pick these toads up, and next thing you know, your dog is either gone or you've got to take it to the emergency
Really
room, and it's
sick.
going to be there for 3 or 4 days.
Wow. Well, it's a fascinating
And so
story, but I mean, like what you're saying, I feel like on both sides of that, both what they're eating and then what tries to eat it, and the result of that, it really
Exactly, yeah.
messes with the ecosystem there.
Oh, it's the species and these things, and in these areas we found tons and tons and tons of cane toads everywhere we went at night. Turn the flashlight, there they are, they're everywhere.
There they
And
are.
once again, one leopard frog, and that poor leopard frog was
And that's
surrounded
the
by
native,
cane toads.
that's what should be there compared
Exactly.
to the numbers being so lopsided. So David's online. His website is reptilesupclose.net, and his books are available there. I think about all the parents or grandparents who have little ones in their families who are like you were when you were 10, or like Mia, and you're naturally interested in reptiles and amphibians, and you really want to start learning now. I think David's books are something smart to pick up. You're also welcome to give him a call, because he does go and speak quite a bit to different groups, school organizations, and the like. David, thank you for coming in. Welcome home. We're glad to have you back. And Mia, it's good to see you too, sweetie. Thank you. She's like, I got to go wash my hands now, lady.
Well,
Let me
she
go.
knows.
Guests in the Morning Blend. Start there.